Today we're going to add a dynamic crosshair. When you move, the crosshair moves. Let's start by making some folders. Right click, new folder. Let's name it imports. Inside that folder, make another new folder. Call it widgets. Now, I've tried to import this several different ways. It seems like the best way is to click here on content, right click, show an explorer. An explorer window will pop up. Okay, so what we're importing is going to be this dynamic crosshair that I found online. Works pretty good. Let me see, this is page 3 of 3. Scroll down all the way to the bottom. There's a link here. I'm also going to provide you a link. This is just to save us some time of creating all this. If you want, you can look it up. There's tons of stuff on it. We're going to go ahead and see if we can speed things up a little bit, though. So, what you need to do, if I forgot already, right click, show an explorer. I'm just going to open this up. Now, inside, you'll see imports, widgets. Just take this. If you get it from the site, it's going to come as a zip file. If you get it from me, it should just come as this, what looks like a text file. It's actually a U asset. You should just drag and drop right in there. Okay? Now, when you come in, you're probably going to have to restart. And it's kind of buggy way of doing stuff. But it's the only way I could get it in there. Just make sure you rename it. Press F2. Get rid of the WB and put something in front. I'm putting my first name, Mark. I'm going to save it all. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Usually, almost always, you'll have to do another restart. But let's go ahead and let's open the Blueprint editor. And let's see, now we're in the middle of a function here. Let's see if it'll work without restarting. So go to your event graph. Just go over here, right click, and say create widget. All right, and do the drop down. Okay, there it is. Mark Crosshair. It actually works. Sometimes it does. Just if it's not, just restart it. Try renaming it. Compile, save. If it's not going to work, it'll show up as a ring instead of a little square. Okay. So we've got it in there. Let's do our EventBeginPlay. Okay. There. So when this starts up, it's gonna create a widget. However, it's not gonna add right to your screen. You're gonna have to say AddtoPlayerScreen. Now, there's also an AddtoViewport. Either one of those will add it, but if you're gonna be doing split screen stuff with multiple people on the same computer, you're gonna wanna go ahead and use this. So, a lot of strange things can happen when you have multiplayer games going on. One of them is that the server will attempt to display its crosshair or its widget on your screen. So to prevent that, you want to use IsLocallyControlled because if it's a dedicated server, it's not controlled at all. That's number one. If you are in a, I'm sorry, make sure I said that right. If you are in a non-dedicated or a dedicated session, it's not controlled at all. If you are in a non-dedicated or a dedicated session, either way, okay. Dedicated means that it does not have a controller, so therefore it will not show. If it is a non-dedicated session, it does have a controller, but if it's not locally controlled, he will not be able to put his crosshair on your screen. If that's not confusing enough, I don't know what is. So let's make a branch. Press B, left click. Connect that right there. Okay? So now that's going to stop it so you'll only have your crosshair on your screen. Now this still sometimes when you event begin play, it fires more than once and will cause multiple crosshairs to pop up on your screen. To avoid that, you need to make a reference by right-clicking, promote to a variable, say crosshair reference. Okay, connect it up to your target, and you've just made a little reference right there, and then make sure you have your signal flow going through like this. All right, now what you want to do, get that crosshair reference out, say get, and check if it's valid. Okay, and basically this is asking, have you been created yet? Okay, and if you have, I want to destroy you, but we don't have a destroy actor for widgets because they're not actors, they're widgets. So you need to say remove from parent. So if it's valid, remove from parent. If it's not valid, just continue on like nothing else is happening. Everything's good to go. Okay? Now, if we press play at this point, we should have a little crosshair on the screen. It's not dynamic because we haven't told it speed or anything like that. So we're going to escape and we're going to go ahead and calculate our speed. So to calculate speed, we already did this in our animation blueprint. So it's get velocity, okay, and then vector length. If you look on your animation blueprint, you will see this. Okay, and the output from this will be your speed. So promote that to a variable and get your speed. Okay. Now, when we're going to be, how often do we want to check where our crosshair is at? We want to check it every single frame. So to do that, we say EventTick. Okay, now you have to be careful what you put here. You put too much stuff here, you're going to bog down your system. This is getting fired every single frame that your computer is running. So depending on your monitor, it could be significant, or your computer and how fast your refresh rate is. So consider that when you're doing that. This is why we're only going to do this calculation once. We're already doing it in our animation blueprint. Therefore, we are going to overwrite, or actually we're going to have this replace what we're doing in our animation blueprint. We're going to get there in just a second. So what I want to do with this speed, I want to send it to a little function called MapRange. And I think we're going to use unclamped. Yep. Okay. And what MapRange does, it's easier to show once you get a few more variables in there. So let me just show you. Get my crosshair reference. Let's get it. Inside of here, there's a variable called crosshair spread. This was made by the person that made the crosshair widget. And we don't want to get it. We actually want to set it. So set crosshair spread. Okay, the reason we had to go through the reference was because the crosshair spread variable belongs to the crosshair reference. Okay, so we're going to set this variable right here. Now, what are these values going to be? Well, this is going to be your stopped speed. This is going to be your max speed, which is 600, which you can look on your character movement, and you can look at, type in speed, and you'll see max walk speed is 600. So you should set it to whatever that variable is right there. All right. So you have your max walk speed. That's what goes there. Now it's going to be mapped to the range of 5, which is as close as you want your crosshairs together. If they were 0, they would be on top of each other, or almost. And for your out range is going to be 80, because that's how far you want them to spread apart on your screen. Okay. Drag this over here. Connect it up. All right. So now compile, save. We have our speed running into our crosshair. So let's see if we've affected anything yet. There you go. Okay, so you see it. It's not pretty. but it is in fact working. So we're getting there. Now we have an error, and I'm trying to think of what that could possibly be. Let's see what it is. Okay. Event graph, set crosshair speed. Okay, it doesn't like how I'm doing the speed, so we might have an issue. Okay, can you see what it is? Think about it. This crosshair reference at the begin play, I'm guessing that the EventTick is trying to call this before it's been created. So what we need to do is we need to check and see if it's valid first. So run off of here, say is valid. Okay. And we run off the speed. If it is valid, we are going to go ahead and do this. If it's not valid, I don't want to do anything with the crosshair reference. So compile, save all. Let's see if we fixed our error. Okay, he's moving around, escape, no error indications. So far, so good. Now, let's go into our mesh. Then let's go to our animation blueprint. Double click. Go to your event graph. If you didn't have it up there, just double click it over here. Okay, now as you see, the thing just crashed on me, and we're going to give it a minute. There it goes. Back to normal. As you see, we are already calculating speed. It would be redundant for us to do this again. Here it is, get velocity, get vector length. It's coming from our get pawn. So what we're going to do is we're going to save the variable. See if I can break all links. Break links. There we go. Okay. And we're going to send it over here. And we have a speed in our character already. We're going to call it. We're going to say get speed. All right. And we're going to use that to drive the local speed variable from our animation blueprint. Okay. Make sure you connect this back up. These are no longer being called. All right. So that's being a little bit more efficient that way. Compile, save all. Now what we want to do, we're still calculating our speed and we're still recording. I've recorded this video like 20 times, so I'm just glad it's still going. What I want to do is I want to make that widget look a little bit nicer. So let's go to where we put it, imports, widgets, crosshair, and let's set some attributes. Go over to the graph, and here we go. If you look down here, you have your spread, thickness, and length. Now spread is 0 because that is how we're manipulating this variable with our character. So we're not going to touch it. It's going to be updated every tick. Okay. The thickness is as minimum we can go without lines bumping into each other. Play with it. You'll see what I mean. This, I'm going to shoot for, let's try really long, 22. Let's see how that looks. Compile, save, press play. Not too bad. Okay, I don't like where it's positioned, obviously. So what we want to do before we position it, though, is let's get all the colors right. So I can't remember if it's bottom or border. I don't remember. I think it might be this. The only way to figure out is to do a little trial and error. So let's click under content here, drag the wheel over to a really bright, annoying green. Press OK. Compile, save. Let's see if that changed anything. Oops, go back to your player here. It did not. So let's go back to the crosshair. What did we change? We changed the border, so it's not going to be the border. Let's cancel that. You know what I can just do? I can just go over here, go over to our bottom. See if this will do it. Just find a little sweet spot in there, plus OK. Pile save. Okay, there, that's what I meant to do. Okay, and then do that for the rest of them. So go into the right. Oh, click back on your bottom here. If you like that color, I think you can just go and drag and drop like that and put it in there. And then if you had another color like this, like white, you could save it in there too. So that one that we messed up, you could just go back and click white, and that one's back to normal. But your bottom's saved. Go to your right, click on there, click your green, okay. Left, okay, and then top. Make this whatever color you want. Compile, save. Save all, press play, and there you go. Now you have your crosshair. Now we want to actually put it into a position that's usable. So press escape. Go to your character. Now this is a mess, and we're going to fix it, but first I want to get it into the right position. So go to your viewport. Something very important. When you're moving your camera around, move it from the camera boom. If you move it from the camera detached from here, what you're going to have, some weird collision issues. The camera will be able to go outside of your collision, and you'll start seeing through walls. So just trust me on this. I'm going to go up a little bit. I'm going to go over to the right a little bit. And then we're going to angle it, but let's compile and save. And this is going to be hard to do with this small monitor here. I'm used to working with multiple ones, but we're going to try and keep this down here. Press play. Okay, I might go down to 1. So Shift F1. Yeah, see, that didn't work out so great. Let me just bring that down here like this. Bring that over here. And let's see what we can get away with. So we might be able to move this over here. There we go. And then click on the camera itself. Press space bar. And this you can get away with angling a little bit. Now be careful. You angle too much and stuff's going to start looking strange when you go to actually play. Now, here's what I mean. If you've set this camera up wrong, when you hit this wall, you're going to go outside the wall. But the way we've set it up, we've stayed inside of his collision sphere or capsule, and when the camera retracts, it doesn't go through the wall. So if you find yourself going through the wall, that's the problem. Now, this crosshair right here, this is like the most people are going to argue over and over about where this crosshair should be. I've seen some games where they have it right here like this, and some games where it's a lot further over. You put it where you want it to go, where you like it, okay? It doesn't have to look like this. But the most important thing right now is to make sure that it's not going through the wall when you do this or when you do this. Because if you set it, if you put that boom outside of there, you'll know it. You'll start going through the wall. It took me forever to figure that little thing out just like that. Okay, so let's save all. Okay. And let's go to our character real quick. And let's go to our event graph. Okay, so let's clean some of this up. So this right here, our speed, this would be a good idea to have a function right here. Let's collapse to a function. And let's just say get speed. Now notice that this output get, it went ahead and made a little output pin for you. You didn't have to do it. That's one of those cool little tricks. So you can say speed out, whatever you want. Then we get over here. And remember I told you if you collapse to a function that, let's say for whatever reason this wasn't valid, this could still fire. And to prove that, I'm gonna show you. We're gonna collapse to a function. Let's see, collapse to function. Okay, and we're gonna call that. What should we call it? What's it doing? Set crosshair speed. So find reference. Oh, there it is. F2, set crosshair speed. Okay, and then you could say speed in. All right, speed out, speed in. There it goes. File, save. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make it so our crosshair reference is invalid. And we're going to add a little print screen. Invalid cross. Okay, that's going to be our short for invalid crosshair. Right in there just like that. Now, since we have not created our crosshair, when we go into our crosshair speed, it's going to come up invalid. Now, you would think not valid. You'd think the signal flow would stop here. But Unreal, for whatever reason, will create an auto output. Like you could put your output here. Let's see, how did I do that? If you did this and you made your own little output, you got rid of the parameter here. We don't need it. And you just put it here. You would think that it would cancel this from ever getting passed. But you compile, save all, and you press play, and look, invalid crosshair, it's still firing. So this is something you always need to consider when you're programming in Unreal with blueprints. It's still going to fire. It's still going to fire even though it's not valid. It's still continuing until it has this invalid cross. If you don't know what that means, you really need to figure that one out, that it's still going through even though it's not connected to here. So somebody brought that up and was like, they were thinking of casting, and that's not exactly what I meant. What I meant was that it can still do that. Okay, so whether it's invalid or valid, I don't want it continuing. So that's why on some circumstances we'll use macros. Here it's not going to matter, but there are situations like we had earlier where it could matter. So we're going to hook this back up so we still have this. And then this is another scenario where we can collapse down to a function, but we have to remember that if it's not locally controlled, this can still fire if we do that. So we're going to go ahead and collapse it down, collapse to a function, and what are we going to call it? We'll just say create crosshair widget. Okay, and we have it there. Now, because EventBeginPlay is one of those things that's going to probably have a lot of things eventually connected to it, and because our crosshair widget probably isn't going to be created when we first start our game, it's kind of just being there as a placeholder right now. So to simulate it starting at a different time, we're going to make it a custom event. So that way when we want to have this happen, we just call that custom event. So let's just right click, say custom event. You can name it create crosshair event, and then that'll take that's place, break this link, and then call it create crosshair event. So what did this do? Okay, well right now it's doing the exact same thing, but let's say we want to make it so that, well, only when we pick up because we're gonna only when we pick up a weapon do we want to have this happen. So we might have like a completely idle pose where you're just you don't have a weapon, right? And you don't want the crosshair up. Well, in that time you don't want to call this, but if begin play, you're unarmed, you're gonna have a crosshair up unless you have another time in which this is called, and this is gonna make more sense later on. So anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to show you. So EventBeginPlay for right now, it's going to fire on down here, and then it's going to create your crosshair widget. Whenever you do something like this, you want to compile, save all, and you want to press play and double check all this right here and make sure everything is going okay. Okay, I'm cycling through. Still going. Everything's good. We can get rid of this test right there. That's what's causing all that. Save all. Make sure we got it all. Okay, and our crosshair, it's looking pretty good. So some may be asking, it looks like you're setting up a third-person shooter game. And what I'm actually doing is I'm doing the third-person stuff first, because to do our first person, we're going to need animations, and we're going to need other things that we might have to purchase. So basically, I'm making a third and first-person shooter. By doing the third person first, we're ensuring that our enemies that we're fighting are going to look right. And if we want the option to have a third person shooter, we will. And I'll show you a way you can disable it in the options menu or something, so that it doesn't have to be a third person shooter. But you can make it so if you want it to be. But that's what we're doing. Also, I noticed somebody already went ahead and added an idle animation. And that's great. And then when he would pick up the weapon, he would go into combat. And that's kind of how we're going to do it. We're going to have it so you're kind of able to move around and look around and have more liberties with the camera at first. And then when you pick up your weapon, you're going to be in kind of like a combat mode. That's one idea that I have. So that's where I'm headed. But we will eventually do first person stuff. I just don't want to make you guys have to go out and buy a bunch of stuff. I think we should have the weapon mechanics kind of in there, the bullets stuff. We have a lot we can work on before we have to go that far. So right now in my animations, animation blueprint, you guys probably already know how to do all this stuff, but you can make this stuff look a lot neater by connecting reroute nodes and stuff like that, and then just sending them off to your various variables. And this is usually how I do stuff when I'm trying to save a little, or when I have plenty of time, I'll do this stuff. So I would recommend getting all your nodes worked out, but I'll let you guys do that on your own time, whatever. So when you come back, you may see some stuff moved around, but it's going to be purely organization. I'm not going to go in, I'm not going to program anything and leave you guys lost as to wondering, what's going on. But as of right now, you might want to add in some comments here saying what this is doing. Stuff like that. But other than that, that's all I needed to show you today. See you on the next one.